Our last method for factoring is factoring by grouping. This method always works. However, it's not always the most efficient. And so we like to save this for the last possible way of factoring, and that's when your a value is not equal to 1 and you don't have a special case. So for instance, down below, we don't have a difference of perfect squares, we don't have a greatest common factor, and our a value is 2. And so this is a perfect setup to try factoring by grouping. So let's explore how to do that. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we have our quadratic actually in standard form. So we just need to do a quick rearranging of the terms. Now that we have it in standard form, we need to figure out what our a, b, and c value are. Some people will find it helpful to actually list it out by saying that a is equal to 2, b is equal to -9, and c is equal to -5. If you don't need to do that, that's fine. If you're not sure, just try it, and then eventually you'll be able to get rid of it, and that's okay as well. So the step here is we actually have to multiply a times c. So we have to do 2 times -5, and that'll give us -10. And now we're going to pretty much do a similar step to the product sum method by finding factors of -10 that sum to -9. And in this case, we find that 1 times -10 gives you -10, and 1 plus -10 gives you -9. What we can do now is to take these two terms that we found and use them to rewrite this middle term, because 1x plus -10x is the same thing as -9x. So let's do that rearranging. It doesn't matter which number comes first. Like you could have put the -10x here and the 1x here. But the important step now is to make sure that we put our first two terms in a group and our second two terms in a group. And that's why we call this factoring by grouping. Once we get it into these two groups, notice that I remember to put my addition sign in between. That is one of the biggest careless mistakes kids make, so do not forget to have this plus in between. But now we're just kind of looking at each group. We want to find the greatest common factor here. So we have 2x squared plus 1x. The only thing they share is an x, so we're going to factor out an x from that group. Then we want to look here and find the greatest common factor, and in that case, it's going to be -2x. Another way you can think about it is whatever is left in parentheses here, this 2x plus 1, is what we have to get in parentheses here. So we need to factor out something to leave us with 2x plus 1 in these parentheses. So what do you take from -10x to leave you with 2x? You take away a -5. So now we're left with y equals x times quantity 2x plus 1 minus 5 times quantity 2x plus 1. What's really cool here is now they both share 2x plus 1, right? Like you have this term, and both of those terms share 2x plus 1. And if two terms share the same thing, you can factor that thing out. So we're going to factor out a 2x plus 1. So factoring out a 2x plus 1, we just want to make sure we did this correctly, so we can do a quick double distribution. 2x times x gives you this 2x squared at the beginning. 2x times -5 gives you -10x right here. 1 times x gives you 1x, and 1 times -5 gives you -5. And so now that we have our two factors, we can set those two factors equal to 0 to solve our quadratic by factoring. So we get 2x plus 1 equals 0. We subtract 1 from both sides to give us 2x equals -1. Divide both sides by 2, and we find that x equals -1/2. And when we add 5 to both sides over here, we get that x equals 5. So you have two solutions. There's another way to think about your factors, by the way, and I'm going to show you another way to look at that. So when you multiply your first term by your last term, you could think of it as multiplying just the numbers, or you multiply the whole thing. So we're really looking for numbers that are factors of -10x squared that are going to add to -9x. And so that's going to be 1x and -10x, because 1x times -10x is -10x squared, and 1x plus -10x gives you -9x. So let's just explore how you can solve this problem by putting the -10x first. And so I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter which one of these go in the grouping first. So I've taken these two factors, I put them in between, I made my two groups and put my plus sign in between. So now I'm going to look at this first grouping, 2x squared minus 10x. The biggest factor that they share is a 2x. So I'm going to factor out a 2x. That's going to leave me with x minus 5. I just want to quickly make sure I did that correctly. So 2x times x is 2x squared, and 2x times -5 is -10x. So I know I did that correctly. Over here we have x minus 5. I want x minus 5, so really the greatest common factor is a 1. So we're left with x minus 5. That's good. You always want what's left in these groupings to be the same. If they're not the same, you did something wrong, or you need to go back and try something different. So now they both share an x minus 5, so I can factor that out. And I'm left with y equals quantity x minus 5 times quantity 2x plus 1, which is the same thing we had, except in the different order. And so if you set those factors equal to 0, you're going to get x equals 5 and x equals -1/2. And that is how you solve by grouping. Again, grouping is used when you want to solve by factoring. You don't have a special case, and your a value is not 1.